I wasn't really sure what was going on, but here I am. I see my dad on top of my mother, his hands around her neck, and she was crying, begging me to do something. And that moment, I figured out what was going on. He was obviously trying to kill her.
Hey guys, we finally did it. Not only did we hit 100,000, but we completely smashed it. We're almost at 120,000 subscribers. But there's still a lot of you guys that are not subscribed, so if you do enjoy my content, please hit that sub button and turn on notifications. It really does help. This video's Twitter shoutout is by Diamond Husky Gaming. Thank you so much for your support. Now let's get back to the video.
Well, it started before I was born. It happened with the marriage of my mom and my dad. It was not a happy marriage from the very start. My dad was a pretty violent person towards my mom. Even when she was pregnant with my older sister, he would still not really stop doing what he was doing, which was just he would punch her to the point where she was bleeding. He would make her sleep on the floor when she was pregnant. Just any types of abuse you can think of, really. My mom just never really wanted to talk about it. And my first real memory that I can recall, really, was of when I was like 5 or 6 years old. It was a unique experience for sure. Basically, I was left alone with my parents at home, and somewhere in the middle of the night, I woke up to my mother screaming. She was yelling my name, asking for help. I got really scared. I jumped off my bed, ran to my parents' room, just to see what's going on. It was just like, just so weird, so scary. I never really heard my mother scream in panic. And so I burst into the room, and I see my dad on top of my mother on bed. I wasn't really sure what was going on, but here I am. I see my dad on top of my mother, his hands around her neck, and she was crying, begging me to do something. And that moment, I figured out what was going on. He was obviously trying to kill her. And as I've said, I was like 5 or 6, so I don't know, it took me like a few seconds to just turn it into, I don't know, I just changed. That very moment, I just couldn't think. I just switched my mind off, and I just went into such rage. I was, and still am, pretty small and skinny. I barely have any muscles, and I was very weak as a child. But it didn't stop me from just jumping on my dad, just punching him, kicking him, biting, and screaming, tell him to get off. And all he was saying, he just kept repeating, "Daddy's giving mommy cuddles." And I just looked at my mom, and she was crying. I still got this image with me, and I'm 21 years old now. Eventually he let go, but he didn't allow my mother to go out anywhere. He took the key, he took her phone. She was forced to stay in. They got up, went to the kitchen for a cigarette, and I followed. They sat on the table, kept arguing, and I just stood there crying, looking at them. And I could just tell my dad didn't want me there. He, at some point, was very open about it, and he started ordering me to go back to bed. Adult talk, stuff like that. He wanted me away. But I just stood there. I tried to keep my tears in. My face just became like very serious and like split of a second, and I just said, I'm not going anywhere until mommy tells me to. And he just kept going. He told me to get back, and he just became more angry every single time. And I hold my ground. I just stay there and not move. Eventually I stopped even responding or looking at him. And that's pretty much all I can remember from this night, other than just going to bed with my mom and cuddling. A couple of years later, my mom told me the expression on my face when my dad was telling me to go back to bed and I held my ground. She could tell, you know, with a child, when they're scared, they're trying to, like, when they try to hold their tears, the face like just kind of twitches. This is what was going on for me, and I just had this one little tear running through my cheek. Eventually, my parents had a divorce. My dad moved to Germany, and my mom eventually met a new partner, and he had a son as well. We moved in together, and it was fine for a long time. However, I couldn't tell when, but at some point I could just tell my mom's boyfriend, started to kinda treat me worse than his son. He started openly disrespecting me, being really rude, and I took it for a couple of years. In the meantime, my dad has moved to the UK, and we didn't really keep any contact, me and my dad, until he eventually texted me, and he was playing the good father figure. You know, he was asking how I was, how he misses me, how much he would wish for me to be there with him, and he would, do that for years, just trying to convince me to move in with him, go to the UK, stay with him. He promised me good school, good education, good job. He promised changed. He was gonna be a good father now. But I just didn't have the courage to, leave my mom. Like, I just couldn't imagine. I stayed in Poland for a couple more years. I was going to school, but I had so many troubles, so much issues, and just bullying. I was constantly bullied by a group of 3 bigger guys. They were my age, but just bigger than me, since, as I said, I was just pretty small. At the start, they were just, verbal and threats and just stuff like that. Then it turned into physical bullying, which I just took because I didn't know any better. It was like primary school still, and then they started like going even further, and they started like really harass me. They would, take me into place in school, like a room where nobody ever was. They would hold me and touch me in places, cause pain. They would threat to kill me, stuff like that. And I just took it for 2 or 3 years. I never told anybody. I was just a child. How do you come to a parent or a teacher and tell them that you're being abused or bullied? And then I moved to a high school. Unfortunately, 2 of those bullies went to the same school. Thankfully, for the most part, the bullying stopped. Not totally though. They would still threaten me. They would still physically and verbally bully me sometimes, but it wasn't as bad as it was, so, you know, I was happy with it. However, it was still a really dark moment for me, remembering, you know, what happened just months ago, or coming back home just to get harassed by my stepdad. And it really got into me, and I still had the messages from my dad in the back of my head, who invited me to the UK, promising a better life. And I made the decision that I wanted to move in with him as well, you know. When I told my mom about my decision, I could just tell she became really sad. She didn't stop me though. She told me, I was like 13, and she told me, I'm not gonna stop you. You're old enough to make your own decision, and if this is what you want, you go. And she just told me to remember what he was like, my dad. When I moved in, I was happy, you know. New school, new people, new country, new language. It was fun. Then I started realizing something. My dad, he didn't really want me there. I didn't feel like I was there for him. He never really paid any attention to me. He didn't talk to me like a normal father would. Turns out I was only there for him for a benefit called child support. So he could basically get money by just having me there.
Please leave a nice comment for the speaker because they almost always read the comments. If this video helped you in some way, you should definitely check out another one, and feel free to join our Discord server and follow me on Twitter.